I want you to change the world, and don't think that this is going to happen peacefully or you can do it alone. We need to kill the rich. You get out there, you use your weapons, and you rip Washington apart. You hunt down the billionaires, the bank bosses, the CEOs, the scumbags, and the liars, the governors, the lobbyists, the senators, because they're all the same, and you hang them.
Good morning, everyone. It's February 9th, 2020. I'm Eric. Yesterday I went over the leftist rage over Trump's acquittal. And not long after, we get two incidences where a leftist Nancy supporter runs his van into a voting booth tent, and that's one from the left, and here's one from the right where sheriff, let's get down to it, assistant sheriff of police posts about blowing up Nancy Pelosi and Democrats and is not arrested. And this is what he said. Pelosi just ripped up his speech. I'm pretty sure that's not how you spell speech. A roadside bomb on her way home, and any other Democrat. So, it didn't take long for that to escalate. Right now, it's only words coming from the right. It's just a matter of time before one violent incident from the left sparks a chain reaction or a contagion. Over here at the Zero Hedge Rudder, this one's from Tyler Durden, approximately 6 Trump supporters were attacked in the parking lot of a Jacksonville, Florida Walmart Saturday afternoon around 3:50 p.m. when a man in his 20s plowed through a voter registration tent, according to the local sheriff's office. Just same day as I said that. Same day. And we have more shit going on with another virus. This time, it's in Africa. No surprise there, right? Except this virus is unknown. It's not a coronavirus, according to them anyway. And the death takes place a lot faster. Just putting it out there. Wonder what's up with that. We got some more here we can hit real quick. Chengdu on lockdown as coronavirus deaths hit 813, surpassing total from 2003 SARS outbreak. Again, you can't trust the 813 number. It's probably at least 8,000 by now, if not more. Chinatown restaurant and tourism sales plunge over coronavirus fears, of course. Of course. And probably the right thing to do is try to stay away from Chinatown at the moment. Not because I have a problem with Chinese people, I really don't. But because it's the smart thing to do. It's the logical thing to do. When a group of people are sick, you do not go running and embracing them. You stay the fuck away. I hate laptops. I should cover that, but I'm not going to. I'm going to get through this as quickly as possible for you guys. U.S. deploys mini nuke and deplorable threat to world peace. Yes. Things on the war front have been ratcheting up, and it doesn't look good on that front either. I mean, nations are only going to take so much provocation before they start acting on the provocation coming from NATO and the United States. Okay, coronavirus super spreader infects 57 in hospital as China continues to refuse CDC help. And wasn't it just a couple of days ago, China whining about the United States ain't doing enough to help us? But the fact of the matter is, the United States, our government, has offered CDC specifically to send the best people they have over there. I wonder why China doesn't want the help after whining about it. I wonder why. Syria and Russia publish evidence of U.S. weapons recovered in Idlib terrorist enclave. Is that a surprise to anybody? I mean, we've been, supplying weapons to terror cells since forever. So, Thai army officer kills 17, takes hostages in another mass shooting broadcast on social media. It was 20, I think, actually. Breaking down the last decade of terrible climate change in 7 narrative-busting charts. We will be getting to that. Global air freight just suffered a worst year since 2009. Bullets, not hugs. Mexico deploys elite Marines to fight drug cartels in response to pressure from the Trump administration. Climate activist leaves environmentalist movement because it's too white. Isn't that nice and unracist of them? All right, let's go back up here. To this one. Here's the thing about climate change and pollution and all that stuff is the vast majority of oil spills, climate damage, damage to ecosystems, all these things, the vast majority of them are done by big corporations and governments. And just think about this for a moment. If it weren't for government, a lot of these nuclear weapons that have been detonated in our nation's history, on our soil, among other places, wouldn't have been detonated. The Fukushima reactor probably would not have been built. I can go on and on and on. They routinely suppress technologies that, well, would degrade with time. Whereas we have aluminum cans, plastic. We can have hemp-based plastic, and it would be biodegradable. we could have cars that run on water, but the guy who invented that died. He was murdered. And anybody else who invents technologies that are planet saving, they either end up dead or the government buys the patent from them and the technology is suppressed. They first try the buy the patent, and if the person refuses, well then, you gotta go, because this is a threat to big oil, among other things, other big industry. But breaking down last decade of climate change. We all know, well, anyone with any kind of intelligence knows that our sun drives the climate. If the sun is less active, it gets more cold. If the sun is more active, it gets hotter. That's just the way it is. The climate's been changing on our planet since it was formed, right? And there's no reason to believe just because people are on the planet that, it's going to stop changing for us. All right, so this article on Grist, James Taylor, the Heartland Institute, tries to point out how terrible the last decade was due to climate change. They write, as this hottest on record, godforsaken decade draws to a close, it's clear that global warming is no longer a problem for future generations, but one that's already displacing communities, costing billions, and driving mass extinctions. And it's worth asking, where did the last 10 years get us? Okay, yeah. Fukushima had nothing to do with these extinctions and the oil spills and these things. They have absolutely nothing to do, right, with these extinctions going on. All right, so they have 7 charts. The 7 charts below begin to hint at an answer for that question. Some of the changes they document, like the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and the number of billion-dollar disasters that occur each year, illustrate how little we did to reduce emissions and how unprepared the world is to deal with the warming we've already locked in. Okay, what they say. Number 1, atmospheric carbon dioxide rose by about 25 parts per million. Well, even if that's true, again, without these giant corporations and these self-important politicians, actors, musicians, flying on their private planes, but these people don't want to do their part in stopping the pollution and just overall degradation of our environment. They want everybody else to sacrifice. They want you to give up your SUV or heavy-duty truck or anything but, a hybrid or electric car. They want you to give all that stuff up and take public transportation because, they're too important. They're too important to be subjected to the very same rules and regulations as everybody else. But I digress. Okay. There's no point. Okay. What they say, number one, atmospheric carbon dioxide rose by about 25 parts per million. There's no disputing that ambient CO2 has gone up in the atmosphere. However, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. NASA, for example, has this to say about the effects of that increased CO2 in a study about CO2 and greening derived from satellite data. So, without CO2, our plants cannot grow. They need it, and we need the plants. Okay. From a quarter to half of Earth's vegetated lands has shown significant greening over the last 35 years, largely due to rising levels of atmospheric carbon dioxide, according to a new study published in the journal Nature Climate Change on April 25th, 2016. In quotes, we are unable to tie the greening largely to the fertilizing effect of the rising atmospheric CO2 concentration by tasking several computer models to mimic plant growth observed in the satellite data, says co-author Professor Aranga Malini, something like that, of the Department of Earth and Environment at Boston University. Let's go check out number 2 here. What they say, climate change is not expensive. They cite this graph. Count of annual billion-dollar disasters in the United States. Apocalypse now, they say. It is apocalypse now, but not for the reasons they're saying. I'm going to tell you that right now. These people are lying to you. All right? And they say one of the best established consequences of global warming is that it makes natural disasters like fires and floods more frequent and severe. In the 2010s, the cost of this consequence came into sharp focus as billion-dollar disasters struck the United States again and again. But that's not true when you look at normalized weather disaster costs. And it may be just that the money's not being spent in the disaster areas, in part anyway. Number 3, more people accept the basic premises that it's getting hot and that it's our fault. Again, you have zero control over how hot it gets. Okay, one can argue that the hot-ass air conditioners in the summer contributes to the heat because there's so many of them, and it drains, it takes a lot of energy. And that's reasonable, but I don't see any of these people in these giant mansions giving up their air conditioners, their swimming pools. Do you? Do you see any one of these assholes like, oh, I don't know, what's that fag's name? Leonardo DiCaprio. Do you see him giving up any of these things? No, of course not. Because again, they want you to give up your stuff, your air conditioner. They want to keep Africa from getting any of this stuff because, it's bad for the planet. But they're unwilling to shed their 40-room mansions and their air conditioners and their private planes and their gas-hogging yachts and all the rest of it because they expect you to do it. Well, you might think You might think that if you believe the highly adjusted temperature data published by NASA GIS and University of East Anglia's Climate Research Unit on climate ground zero for the embarrassing and revealing Climate Gate affair in 2009. But when you look at unadjusted data, they just love to adjust the data too on everything. Everything from diseases to economic data, it all gets revised and adjusted. There's not one honest number we're given by the government, any government, let alone China. Let's see. When you look at the unadjusted data, such as it is produced by the state-of-the-art United States Climate Reference Network, operated by NOAA, you get a wholly different idea about temperature over the last decade. So it doesn't look like we're very high according to this graph, does it? So let's go to number 4. But there's a widening partisan divide when it comes to worrying about the environment. That's what it's there for. The key word in that sentence is divide. That's the key word. And conservatives generally think things through and look at fact-based evidence compared to liberal side, which seems to feel issues far more than they critically examine them. And I do agree with that statement. That's why I am more right-leaning than I am left, because I don't think with my emotions. I think with logic. So, number 5, coal continues its death spiral. And this is not true at all. Coal is doing rather well. Okay, what they say, solar skyrocketed, but fossil fuels still dominate. And solar doesn't really... Look, the only way solar panels are worth it is if you're not connected to the grid at all. If you don't want to, for example, out in California in the fires, okay, the people who got solar panels and had it connected to the grid were unable to use their own solar panels because PG&E shut the fucking power off. Now, what kind of sense does that make? How logical is that to buy solar panels that you're not going to be able to use when you need them? That's the whole point. And fossil fuels do still dominate, and we can do much better than that. We could be using hydrogen. Number 7. While coal flatlined, the price of renewables dropped precipitously. And let's see here. Where's the key at? No, it doesn't really have too much fucking... It's back in 2015. I prefer not to use data that old. The EIA estimates the 2 largest federal tax credit programs benefiting wind and solar paid out a combined $2.8 billion in 2016. These funds came through a tax credit worth 2.4 cents per kilowatt hour of power produced, as well as a deduction equal to 30% of a facility's installation cost. These two tax credits are set to expire at the end of 2021, though a permanent 10% investment tax credit for solar and geothermal installations will remain. And that doesn't include state tax credits, which were also substantial. So, these people are going to continue to say everything is the public's fault. But until people like Al Gore, Leonardo DiCaprio, all these assholes, you know who they are. Greta Thunberg, come on. How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? Anyhow, these people, they don't want to give up their yachts, their planes, their giant mansions. They don't want to give up their money. They don't want to give up any of these things. They expect the people, the meager workers of this nation and planet to, go without these luxuries because they're important and you're not. Which is why we shouldn't have a government in the first place. Because it puts people on thrones. It makes them feel like they're gods. And people actually treat some of these individuals as if they're gods themselves. Crying, weeping, celebrating, as if their own dick is in the game. When it's in the game, all right, just not how they think it is. Because either side of this aisle will stomp all over that dick until it's a bloody, pus-filled hole. It's a pretty disgusting image, isn't it? Pretty disgusting. Anywho, I thought I would share this stuff with you. By the way, this coronavirus is not going away. It just continues to spread. It continues to ravage the planet, and I don't suspect that it's going to let up anytime soon due to its ability to replicate so quick and hide in the host for so long. And let me remind you, you can re-get this virus. And maybe we should be looking at Africa. There was something else I needed to share with you about this, and it completely slipped my mind, which is going to make this video a long one. Where's it at? There it is. As I mentioned briefly at the beginning of the video, there is another virus spreading through Africa. And it kills in just a couple of days. They have not identified it as of yet, and so we maybe should be looking at the entire world for these events, because I'll be honest with you, I have a hard time believing it's anything but intentional. Or it's did I say that right? It's all intentional. That's what I'm getting at. All right. Like every issue of consequence in our age of incomprehension, opinion about the truth concerning the V201 outbreak is divided. Like everything else. Again, you see this word divided, all right? Everything is meant to divide us. Don't be an asshole to a person just because they're Asian. That's stupid. Just like it's stupid to be an asshole to a black man just because he's black. It's just fucking stupid. But what's not stupid is being an asshole to that fucking retard Snoop Dogg. As if he's actually a gangster. As if he would actually show up at some motherfucker's house to do something. If that's the case, come on down, Snoop Dogg, and I'll show you what this little white guy's made of. But I digress. Okay. Alright. Divided. Either China is taking all the prudent steps with the virus while transmittable, has a low mortality rate, and the West, with its travel bans, is overreaching in a vaguely racist manner, or China has the virus far from contained, which that is the truth. They're not containing this virus. We don't know just how transmissible it is, nor its mortality rate, because the figures from China can't be trusted, and then therefore travel bans are a wise precaution. Except they instituted these bans way too late. But let's get down to this part concerning Africa. And because China has a strong presence there. And, there's no reason to think that these people haven't been traveling to and from Africa. If travel bans to and from infected parts of China turn out to have been justified, then one country in particular may be worth watching: Ethiopia. Ethiopia's Boyle International Airport is the main African gateway to and from China. On average, 1,500 passengers per day arrive from China. Ethiopia scans them for all symptoms, which essentially means taking their temperatures, and we've seen how effective that's been in China. Yay or nay? Many of those passengers then fly on to other parts of Africa where Chinese companies are doing business. These are 2018 figures courtesy of the Brookings Institute. So, yeah. Just something to consider. Because, flights from China arriving at Boyle International come from Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Chengdu, Hong Kong. I should probably stick with English, huh? Just yesterday, the Chinese government added Chinese fifth largest city, Guangzhou. I think that's right, but I don't know. Okay? I'm not Chinese and Spanish or Arabic or Jewish. I am a straight up white guy. But anyway, they added this fifth largest city to its list of lockdown quarantine cities, which strikes me as news as well. For that place to have been quarantined means it must already have a large number of cases. And it's nowhere near Wuhan. So there's that. So we have Chinese people flying all over the world, okay, since early December, when it was discovered actually in late December, and there's certain politicians who think that same way I'm thinking was spreading longer than this. But what do I know? And probably it's going around Africa, which is the point of this article, is they just got testing kits. So they're going to have to start testing people there before we know if Africa has been infected as well. We already know that they have a completely separate virus from corona, and it kills faster. So there's that. I wanted to share this with you before I got off here, and I hope everyone has a great day. And remember, without the government, without the super rich, without these self-important people, most of the problems we have now would not exist. And that's why I tell you each and every day to kill the state and live free.